when we're in the middle of a ghost hunt and we're supposed to be whispering and being creepy, right? So, we got to get some chuckles out of you guys. Come on, this is supposed to be fun. All right, first thing we're going to be doing, thermal imaging. So you should be able to see me in there, right? I'm the red, orange, and yellow guy. So with this, what are we looking for? What do you think?
Cold spots.
Right, cold spots, literally. So this is a FLIR camera. This is what firemen use to actually help save people. Like, this is the real deal here. And the red, orange, and yellow means I'm the hottest thing inside the video, fellas. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it goes. Wow, that was another joke. And you guys, like, missed it. I know, right? I throw a couple of them out there to make sure you guys are laughing and having a good time. But anyway, we're looking for blue and black on this. Those are the cold spots. The way I have this set up as well is I have a blue dot bouncing around the screen, giving you the coldest spot in the frame at that particular moment. Reason being is it's going to help direct your eye when you get the video back of where to watch the video for those cold spots. So everybody's going to get this full video back. It's not going to be just a person that uses it. So with that, Brian, I think I'm going to go with you on this one. So you've been staring at it the entire time, like very intently. You're going to hold it horizontally just like that. You're perfect because your fingers aren't in the way of the camera and we're not like super high where we're YouTubers and that kind of thing. So you're like in a perfect spot. All right. We're going to talk more about your device at the next location. Well, you guys are really quiet. Either that or very attentive. One of the two.
Soaking it all in.
I know. I talk a lot. That's why we record everything. I'm not from here, so I'm sure if you are from the South, I'm sure you realize like I do not have a Southern drawl to me at all. All right, the next crazy camera. This one works completely different. I know I'm showing you a black screen, but it is a demo, so again, I'm going to show you why I'm showing you a black screen here in just a moment. It should be pretty hard to see me in that camera, except for the car lights hitting me right now. So we're going to turn on some lights. So we are working with 24 infrared LED lights. These are lights that you cannot see with your own eyes. The point of this is that we're going to hopefully find something we would not normally be able to see with our own eyes. So again, we're working with 20 lights up here and then 4 attached to the camera. So again, we're working with infrared lighting with this guy. I'm going to start the recording already just to make sure our thick humidity tonight's not going to affect the camera, and that way we can fix it pretty early. Maddie?
Perfect. I'll take it.
Just want to make sure I had the name right.
Oh yeah, you do. You did.
That one's going to go to you. Don't be afraid of it. It's got a little bit of weight to it.
Yeah. Oh, get all the angles.
Where are the other cameras? This
Spirit boxes. We're going to be using 6 different spirit boxes tonight, 5 different styles. So how do these guys actually work? First off, this is the white noise you guys would normally hear on your TV shows. So your host will kind of tell you what he thinks he heard in the middle of the white noise by putting it up on the middle of the screen. We're going to be doing that in real time. However, mine are slowed down. Like, the reason for that is because finding disembodied voices like what they show you on television is a rarity. So we have these slowed down on purpose to actually allow the radio chatter to come through. Song lyrics, DJs, commercials are going to come through this recording. Now, the person using this, it's a 50-50 shot that if they can make out what they hear from the radio, to the song lyrics and the DJs and the commercials, that we could tie it to the location of where we are, a person in his recording's back going again. So with yours, you're going to keep it horizontal, camera on the left, but you're going to try to do 2 things. I know I just asked you not to film anybody, but I do want you to try to keep one of us in view. We're the warmest thing out here. Much easier to find cold spots if we have that array of color in the screen. The other thing is, it's going to be difficult because you're the tallest person here, is to keep the sky out of view. The reason why is the blue dot that I told you guys about earlier is looking for surfaces. There's no surface on the sky, and therefore we'll default to the sky trying to find one. So again, 2 things. Are people in? Sky out. So, and you haven't said a word either besides your own name. We got to get you chit-chatting too. Maddie?
Yes.
How am I getting your name right and not the other 2?
I don't, because I'm special.
So,
Yeah,
Maddie,
okay.
nice slow movements out of yours.
Okay.
And at times I'll say, let's go ahead and cut those cameras off. So with yours, that's the button right here. It's all the way to the right of the top of the camera. So again, it's recording right now. We're going to let it run until the end of our next space. I think the only other person that I need to work with, dude, I forgot your name.
John.
John again? Another John?
Yeah.
Oh, we got two Johns?
Jonathan.
Damn.
Jonathan.
You're gonna be Little John. Maybe we should call you Little John.
Little John.
Maybe we should call you Little John.
Or John Boy.
Either
John
one.
Boy.
And I'm losing
John
your
Boy.
name too. I got John Boy.
Amy.
Amy. I think I remember that one. That's my co-host's name. All right. So, are we ready to get away from football players and ponies and deep dive into history?
Yes.
All right. We're gonna go on this way.
I have the word uniform.
Oh, well, that's good. Hopefully we got something else to go along with.
Okay.
Probably gonna ask you.
I don't know if I'm supposed to listen to the radio. I'm supposed to listen to the radio when it's on
All right. So, any letters on the way here, Amy?
E.
Just E? Okay. That's actually a good one. Did anybody listen to their spirit boxes long? I
I'm
know.
listening.
Okay. Jamie's like, I
I'm just
got
getting
this.
some tunes.
Got it. It's okay. It's about the lyrics, too.
Okay.
So, welcome to your first space. Yes, there's a lot of vehicles in here. It's Saturday night. So, we're going to have kind of minimal spaces to work with. Again, this is one of those spaces where we don't want to film people's cars. Kind of keep that in mind as we're going to spread out in here after I give you the history. EU. More interested in just the E. We'll see what else pops up with it. So, spirit boxes. This space, I am not going to be giving you questions like what color is George Washington's white horse, like what we did over there with the big red barn. So I'm going to withhold information on purpose, and your spirit boxes are going to give you answers to the questions that I'll kind of put out there after I give you the history. So what is this place? It's just a parking lot, right? But it used to be the Eliza and Charles Pinckney Mansion. Their mansion actually sat in the front of this space facing East Bay Street. Eliza's garden was lined up with Five Church Restaurant over there and came all the way across. And we are standing in the servant and slave quarters for the home. So, I always like to give you the layout. Eliza and Charles had a son named Charles. They had a nephew named Charles. That's 3 Charleses. Do you guys see why we look for those secondary clues now? We need to know which Chuck we're chatting with if one decides he wants to come through. However, the son and the nephew were signers of the Constitution for South Carolina. It's a pretty big deal for us, but I hate politics, so we're not going to talk about them. So we're going to talk about Eliza with the initial E. So we're going to see how else this is going to go with the rest of your letters. So when did E show up, by the way? Was it across the street, or was it once we entered the space?
We were coming in this space.
Coming into the space.
It came E, U, and now I have L.
Hang on to that L. E, U, and L are good. Okay, so Eliza married Charles at a young age. I'm not going to tell you what that age is, but it's not going to be like the colonial times that she came from. It's going to be according to today's standards. If you'll ask her once we separate how old she was when she was married, you're not going to hear numbers like 12 and 14, just so everybody kind of has that in the back of their minds. But the reason I bring this up is because Charles, her husband, was over double her age when they married. So it's a pretty big age gap back in colonial times, pretty big age gap now. So just putting that out there. Now, she married Charles because her father was over in England, and he thought he was dying. And he's trying to bring all of his children home one last time. She didn't think he was dying, so she got married. 1744. You don't get married in 1744 for a green card or citizenship. She married this guy out of love, and it is a true love story. But she was right. Dad got better. He starts sending her gifts. One of those gifts happened to be the plant seeds of indigo. You guys have been in town for at least an hour. Some of you live here. You've seen the word indigo here somewhere. I guarantee it. Indigo is a plant that makes blue dye that makes our blue jeans blue. So some of you actually have it on tonight. It's actually nice to have more than one example. Good deal. So when she got these seeds, she didn't know what to do with them. She had to learn from her slaves how to keep it cultivated. It's not always hot here. So when she had to figure it out, she moves it to a plantation south of here, and then she actually calls her father up and says, rice plantations are going downhill. We can make a killing with this indigo. So now we have an international businesswoman during colonial times, something absolutely unheard of. So that's Eliza's business. Let's get into the weird stuff, because that's why most of you are here. Let's kind of go right down the road with spirit boxes. So with your particular spirit box, the mansion's not here anymore, obviously. You can ask what happened to it. If you get an answer, when did that happen? We're looking for obviously a specific date. So that's the way that one's going to go. Jamie, you're going to go after Eliza's death. So Ask anything you want to. How old she was when she died, what she died from, where she's buried, and which president was a pallbearer at her funeral. So again, these are answers you're going to get out of those DJs and song lyrics.
Okay.
Holly, your spirit box.
Okay.
Has a pretty large dictionary in there, but I've seen both of these answers actually pop up in the past. The Eliza we just talked about was the second wife named Eliza from Charles, back to back. I know, kind of smart, very stupid, depends on how you look at it. But in the same year, the first wife Eliza dies, the second wife he marries 5 months later. They both have a maiden name that starts with the letter L. Let's figure out which Eliza we're dealing with by asking her maiden name, and hopefully it'll actually pop up. That's the reason why I'm excited about the EL that showed up on Amy's device. So again, I know we have that U in the middle of it, but again, somewhat relevant. We're gonna see how this actually goes. Shelby, the children. I want you to ask how many children she had and what their names are, but that's it. If we poke the bear with the children, all activity will stop. And nobody's given me any EMF readings yet, so where's the other one? You haven't, I'm sorry. Have you seen any colors yet at all?
No.
Nothing. And any numbers come up out of yours? So if we did have anything, those would pretty much stop, just so you know. So names and how many, and then leave it alone. Amy, I'm gonna have you just grab whatever questions you want to out of this, just because this is literally a brand new device that I'm starting to work with, and I want to see what kind of pops up with it.
EULSRYQ.
It's a lot of letters. It's a lot.
And that's just sitting here.
Yeah. I like the EL, obviously, because Eliza and her maiden name started with the letter L.
When you said slaves, the S popped up.
But we don't have a full spelling. What other letters do you have there?
RYQ.
I got nothing on it. Again, this device is brand new to the market. Like, it's only like 2 months old. I've had it a week. So they just designed this, and it's only been out for about 2 months. So again, there's a lot of like speculation with this particular device. I'm gonna have you go after, John, what happened to the mansion as well, just because it's only giving us very 1 to 2 syllable type terms. So what happened to the mansion, and when did that actually happen? So hopefully we can get some answers out of it and kind of take things from there. If you stay, obviously, why am I using your name? Maddie. Well, it's because you moved around on me, that's why. So again, try to stick with somebody with a camera, so that way, because yours doesn't record, so that way if you miss something, it shows up on the audio of the video, if that makes sense to everybody. So I do have to work with John Boy over here to show him how to use that motion sensor, because we're going to be using it in this particular location. We are going to spread out in here, video cameras, nice slow movements, not in between vehicles. Again, if somebody's walking by, go the opposite way. We don't want to be vloggers out here. I will be bouncing around with all of you to kind of see what's going on with your devices and taking some notes. So again, depending on what goes on in here, we'll be here from anywhere between like 5 to 10 minutes investigating the space. So again, these are little mini investigations throughout the entire evening. So, John, you're gonna stick with me. What do you got?
3.9.
3.9, so it's a good start.
2.8.
So we're gonna escalate it from 3.9. So I'll write down 2.8 and 3.9. Don't give me anything below 3.9 at this point. We're gonna keep it going up. And I'll explain what those numbers mean before we leave the space. And yes, I will give you all the answers before we leave the area as well. So as I start bouncing around, you'll see me taking notes. And then I'll gather us all up back here again to kind of do a quick recap, give you guys what we actually have. Do you have colors now?
It,
How high?
it's like flickering. It was going to like
I saw
like
it.
the orange. Like I saw this one. Yeah.
I have the
it said-
colors memorized as far as the measurements, so I already saw which colors coming up. So hopefully it'll go up much higher than that.
What do you want me to do with this?
Tons and tons of pictures. So when it shuts off, the power button is right next to the shoot button. So
Cold spot.
anything. Selfies will be deleted, just so you know.
I know.
All right, let's spread out. John, you're gonna stick with me.
QQ.
QQ, double Q. Still got nothing. Yeah, watch out for moving vehicles. So, all right, John, let me show you how to use that motion sensor. Everybody else, let's get those spirit boxes cranked up and let's see what we can find in
Just
here.
ask the question aloud, obviously.
He said ask the question out loud.
You want to switch, shall we? Here. You want to switch?
But mine lights up too. To motion. What are you asking?
I wish there's a way I could look at all the words. Like, how do I know, like, I haven't skipped over one?
This is what I hear, just like probably this here. It's like bits and pieces of different random radio stations, like words.
Oh, there we go.
He told me to stick with you.
There for a moment.
We like the part about history. We could love them on like regular ghost walks and like stick to history.
Right, that's exactly what it is. Just like I spoke about.
That's
So again, right, just first time I ever thought, see if this actually is going to work here.
use that without mistakes.
But again, it does have a bad stigma to it. So again, just
Make out anything.
show me what you're getting on there. Number 9. Obviously, you've gotten a green, yellow. You said it again.
It went to 8.5 there, and it went green, and then back to green.
I got an N.
Another N.
Yep.
So now we try to stick up here. Yeah, just so I can kind of keep a whole group together. And Brian, with this camera and the other camera, it's just a matter of like making sure, like nice slow movements. It's not always an in-the-moment find, but if we're not recording, we won't capture anything. So you've been pretty quiet. I know, I talk too damn.
I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm paying attention.
Every time I ask what are their names, I hear Morgan Wallen.
His name's Morgan. No, I didn't touch your arm. I won't buy you, but I didn't touch your arm.
And see, look, you can go here and you can see all the words that come up on the list. Like the number 12 came up.
But that's not.
Uh-oh, leave now came up.
What?
Leave now.
I don't remember seeing that a minute ago. Tia. But it wasn't up here.
Just like, leave now.
Looked like there's a number that came up. I said, okay, when did that come up? I was like, I don't know. I didn't notice it. I didn't see it. I certainly didn't see leave now
And I just got an A.
at 9:30. What time is it? Almost 9:30. 10 minutes ago.
Is this what you sound like when you're feeling okay? Yeah. I was like, yeah. I said, we really like the histories of his own history. We're just capturing any little details that could go on in history. And that's neat, I think. Amazing.
dude. Reset it to make sure it's not me, dude. This thing's going nuts.
We got
It keeps going yellow over and over and over.
yellow, any numbers?
No.
A bunch of yellows. Maybe anything coming up on yours?
NAZ is all I got.
Oh, I got 10.4.
Got it. You have it. Again, they were missing in the eye. It's crazy. Yeah, it's kind of a stretch, but at this point, it's like, hey, nothing. It's time. All right. Somebody hiding in the corners? All right. Come on, you three. Come on back. Let's get you guys some answers. Went all the way to orange?
Yeah.
So you run up to 20. About half. Again, hers is a lot. All right, so to circle back around, kind of show you guys what's going on here. I think the most prominent things we have, because that's the only entrance and exit. So Big John actually heard the name John. We're still close to Big John's, so again, things do kind of do a bleed over from time to time. This is one of those spaces where we do get things from Big John's back and forth. I will tell you that the word kneecap, you had the word knee on your word list, is somewhat relevant to this location, so I'm going to get into that here in just a moment. John also heard the word fire. This place did catch fire in 1861. I'm going to go over that in just a second. We also had the number 12 show up, so that is relevant to the fire. So again, they're vague stretches at this point. We also have EL that showed up when we got here, so it was an EUL, and then later on she had a ZA. So the only thing we're missing out of Eliza's name is I. So again, it's really a vague stretch because I haven't had anything come out of that device in the week that I've had it other than a set of initials at another spot that I normally take folks to. So let's get into the answers. Look, we had an 8.9. Let me explain what these readings mean before I really deep dive into
They just
it.
did a 14.8.
14.8. So remind me to write that one down as we're walking out. So the readings that we have coming out of these EMF detectors, let me use a point of reference in your house. So behind your TV, you have a bunch of wires. If you're to put one of these devices back there, it's going to go all the way from 40 to 60 milligauss if you're using Little John's device. So that's about an average. We had a 14.8 in a space with no electricity. So kind of take that for what it is. That is still a low reading for this space. We normally average about 18 to 22 milligauss in here. But I will also tell you that your microwave running on high is about 150 to 170 if you're just standing next to it with the door shut with that device. The highest I've ever seen Little John's device go has been in this space at 214 milligauss. Those are dangerous levels. Needless to say, the guy with seizures, I got us the hell out of here. Like, it was a pretty fast drop, like we left. I told them that all the answers to the space later on. So again, it's not safe for me to stay there at that point, so we just left. Like, that was a pretty big deal. I've also seen it go all the way up to 197 milligauss in another space that was in St. Augustine, Florida.
FH. It just came up simultaneously.
FH at the same time? That's weird. You must be standing on something that's giving you a lot of EMF readings. Interesting. But I like to explain what those readings mean because we're going to be using those devices at the next space for sure, testing a few different theories. So, Eliza, first thing I always like to do when I break out the tablet is kind of give you guys the mugshot of the person that we're dealing with, that we're trying to hunt down. I will go around the room whenever I break out the tablet, that way you guys don't have to huddle around, but this is Eliza Lucas Pinckney. So, what I was so excited about that UL earlier that came out of the Envoy was that we had UL show up after E, so it's EUL. So I'm waiting for CAS to show up in some kind of anagrammic format. This is the second wife, the one we discussed, that planted the indigo. She was 22 when she married Charles. He was 45. So it's better than 12 and 25. We're going to take it. So the first wife, her name was Eliza Lamb Pinckney. So Lamb and Lucas were the two maiden names that started with the letter L. Just so everybody kind of has that thought. As far as the mansion, like I said, it did catch fire. This is the only photograph we have of the mansion. This is the Great Fire Damage of 1861. This is exactly where you're standing right now. Again, kind of a crazy thing. Here's where the number 12 comes into play. This happened on December 11th of 1861. At times, we'll hear the term fire, just like John did, and we'll have the full date of 12/11/61 all in the same evening. So again, just depends on who's here and who wants to chit-chat about it. Again, we got the number 12. I'll obviously be looking for 11 and 61 as I'm going through your spirit box in your regular videos. So kind of keep that in mind. Whenever you guys are taking other tours, by the way, they're all going to tell you about a great fire of whatever year it happened. This is one of the biggest fires we actually ever endured. We are standing on the green dots on the right-hand side of this map. The orange is obviously the fire. This is $5 to $9 million worth of damage in 1861. This is a lot of damage, just so you know. What do I know that translates to today? I have no idea. Inflation changed this morning again, I'm sure. So kind of keep that in mind. But I always like to show you at least how big the fire was. The children, who had the questions about the kids? So there were 4 children grand total. Charles, we already know about, he was signer of the Constitution. The next one was Thomas. He fought in a Revolutionary War battle, and he was actually shot in his left leg, probably near his kneecap. So it's a probably. I don't have a definitive answer on that, but it does show up here quite often enough for me to be able to say it's a good probably. Can't find the exact definition. He was captured by the British after he was shot in the left leg, and when he was released, he was left on a cane the rest of his days. So we didn't have the name Thomas show up or any other clue other than the word knee that showed up on the word list. So I'll be diving into that if there's anything else to go along with it. The next child is the one I asked you all not to poke the bear with. This is Baby George. You can probably already see where this one's going based on his name. Baby George does not have a grave. He does not have a headstone. The reason behind that is it's a great possibility that they would have mummified this child and kept him right here in the home, waiting for mom to pass away so he could be buried with his mother. It's a great possibility. You can't Google mummied baby and not expect a phone call from the government. So again, I can't prove that theory, but it is a great one because it did happen quite often during colonial times. The last child, her name was Harriet. The only daughter married Daniel Ory. Myrtle Beach is in Ory County. That should give you an idea of where she lived. What do you have now?
Well, I got FH and then KHE.
Yeah, I guess. And then we're talking about Ory, which starts with an H. But it wouldn't have been a 2.5-hour car ride for Eliza to go see her daughter. Lots of letter writing. In the event Harriet shows up here, it's lots of terms like quill, ink, paper, anything dealing with letter writing. So it's very seldom that we actually hear from Harriet, but when we do, that's usually the case. Harriet's death. Jamie, that was yours, right? You were asking about how she died and how old she was?
No, I asked about Eliza.
How she died. Right.
Yes.
So, Eliza died at the age of 70. First off, I'd like to point out that that's a long time to be living during colonial times, for a woman, especially. That was in 1793. So the number 93 often shows up here, just so everybody knows. With that said, she was going to Philadelphia, getting treatments for whatever they thought she had. It turned out to be breast cancer. We didn't know what breast cancer was completely yet in 1793, so we're going based off of her medical records today.
All the way up.
Move the camera.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. It happens. So, she died in Philadelphia. She's buried in Philadelphia. That should ask 2 questions in the back of all of your brains. Baby George. If my theory is true, they would have transported that mummified baby all the way to Philadelphia by horse and carriage from this space to be buried with his mother, if it's true. The second question is, if she's buried up there, why are we here? And I don't actually take you to cemeteries. You don't get a whole lot of activity in actual cemeteries, just so you know. None of you are going to hang out where you're buried when you're gone. You're going to go to your mansions 400 miles away. So again, that's why we come to the spaces that we do, because that's where the legitimate paranormal activity actually occurs. Who wants to take a stab in the dark at the president that was the pallbearer at her funeral? Where's my history buff? Anybody? Going once? 1793? Going twice? Washington, at his own request, wanted to pay homage to Eliza based on her indigo that helped get our country started. So that was the whole reason behind it. Here's the funny thing about why none of you could answer correctly. when we got here, I told you all I'm not going to give you questions like what color is George Washington's white horse. I do that on purpose, putting George Washington subliminally in the back of all of your brains. And then you guys go out and investigate, and then when you come back, that's the only question I give back to you to see who can actually give me the answer. You all passed with a fail because none of you are subject to subliminal messaging. I do that on purpose, so that way I know what kind of people I'm working with. So some of you are grinning like, yeah, that's actually pretty clever, and the other ones are like, man, that dirty bastard just tricked me. So it's the only one I do. The fact that you all passed with a fail is a good thing. This space is an intelligent ghost. We ask questions, we get answers. The next space is not that way. By the way, those of you with video cameras, go ahead and stop your videos. You can kind of give your hands a break.
Apologies. Excuse us.
Alright. My name's Secret here. What we got going on?
I didn't hear anything.
You didn't hear anything at all? No? Nothing on your zero? Joey? Any letters?
J-H-O-I-D.
J-H-O. And any names show up on yours? Nothing that you can make out? Okay.
Mine like started going crazy
Yeah,
in front of the
mine went,
Rudy
like,
Warren and
How
at that
far
gate.
back? Well, at the gate, you have that big electrical piece right there.
Might have been one.
Yep, so you bumped on that one. Good catch. So, I do like the J-H-O, and I'll explain that here in a second. But welcome to Large Alley, everybody. Like, this is a weird space, first off, just because when we crossed that last crosswalk, we actually lost it, folks. Sorry about that. I went too quick on a pace. That's where the original Charlestown Wall used to be. So it actually went up Cumberland Street and then down East Bay on the other side of where we were walking. So you're standing on one of the first streets we ever had. So I have the full list of residents and every person that's ever lived down here. Don't be super impressed. I see the eyebrows go up. It's not a very long list, but I do get the same names over and over again every 6 to 7 weeks. We are in week 6 of that 6 to 7 week long loop that I normally capture names. Those names are Benjamin and John. That's why I'm excited about the J-H-O that popped up, because again, the only thing we're missing is the N out of that as far as the anagram part of it. But Benjamin and John both lived here in 1801. Do I have anything significant about them? No. The only thing that John likes to do is because there were 4 different Johns that lived down here, he likes to give us his last name, Johnson. His full name was John Johnson. So we will get, Ben, John, and Johnson all in the same night every 6 to 7 weeks. I can't pinpoint of when it's actually going to occur, but right now I can tell you because I keep track of the loop. Last major occurrence happened 6 weeks ago, so we're right in the middle of that loop. Here's why I think this is happening. We're standing on Belgian blocks. These bricks have been here since 1739, a few hundred years. So they've been here a long damn time. The stone tape theory states that any stone that has been sitting in the same place for a long period of time can hang on to the consciousness of the memories of the things that occurred here. So because these have been here for so long, I started testing them. These are made of granite. Granite is not supposed to have any electrical charge to it whatsoever. Like a piece of quartz or a magnet will erupt an EMF meter. So John, I literally want you to pick any device and put it on any dry brick that you can find, and let me know if you get any numbers out of it. So
Just set it down.
Just set it down. I would expect up to 1.1 because that's natural from the Earth. Anything above that is worth recording. 4.1? 4.1 is worth recording. I've seen you go all the way to 15.7 in this location. So again, can't explain it. It's just one of those pieces where the stone tape theory would actually come into effect of why these things keep occurring every 6 to 7 weeks. So you said 4.1?
Yeah, 3.7.
Okay. we'll take those. You can go ahead and pick it up. That's good. They're low, but again, it's definitely higher than a 1.1. Now, before people lived here, the Freemasons had a Masonic lodge here, which is where Lodge Alley gets its name from. So we will get terms wrapped around the Freemasons as well. So Freemason, Mason, right, and symbols, and Illuminati loves to show up on those red spirit boxes with the earbuds. Now, first off, with those, you're listening to song lyrics to DJs. Who the hell's talking about the Illuminati on the radio is my first question. The second question is why are we only hearing it while we're in this space? 6 times last year, verified. 3 times so far this year, verified. So again, people tell me that they heard it on the way in, and of course, I'm always digging for it when I'm going through your recording the next day. So this is a very interesting space, but it's also very humid this time of year because these bricks like to hang on to the sweat of the humidity. So we don't stay here for very long. The next space we're going to go to is another alley. However, I'm not going to take you all the way through it because I've been booted out of there. You guys have all the blinky lights and noisemakers and all of that, and it is considered residential at the end of it. So we are not going to go all the way down that alley, but I do tell you what goes on down there outside the alley, stirring things up for our last 2 locations, because that is the bleed over into the last location as well. For those of you with video cameras, we are going to stop your videos as we exit the alley because we're cutting through a neighborhood to get to that next alley. So I will also tell you how I got booted out of that alley because that's half the fun of that story. So again, a lot of people like to know why, but we're actually going to, we'll let them cut through real quick. We're actually just talking. Sorry guys. Oh, you're good, you're good. We're going to be cutting through you here in just a moment anyway. I know, right? Actually a rarity that I run into other tours. So did we get any other terms or phrases before we leave the space, Holly? Farm?
Feeding and coat and manager.
Oh, I don't want to be a coat manager for the hotel, so maybe we should move on. This probably sounds like a good idea. Did anybody else hear anything while we've been standing here?
QCP.
QCP. No, we got nothing on that one either. Some of you have been muted. Once we get past this other tour sitting up here, those of you that have the open air spirit boxes, go ahead and unmute them once we get past them. So we'll go ahead and cut through them very discreetly, and we'll move on to our next alley. Get for all stuff. Good job.
Got our K2 meters and our EMF detectors, very nice. And our apps. But you see how beautiful that is? Yeah, and again, you can't see it.
The shadow.
Shadow. You can turn that off here, so that little white button in the back, the building behind you is going to make it go off. There's some electricity running through there. Those of you with video cameras, if you want to very discreetly film the alley behind me, you can. Looks like you guys are actually both in a perfect position. I say discreetly because other tours will actually be cutting through there, and they did not pay to get filmed like you guys did. So again, this is a pretty popular ghost tour stop. So where are we? This is Philadelphia Alley. This is a lot of tours like to come down here. If it's not a staple, it should be. But it used to be called Duelers Alley. This is where some of the duels used to occur for the city of Charleston. Yeah, so has a lot of history down here, but we all tell the same story of which specific duel occurred down here because we can prove it. And the other piece of that is I'm going to tell you this story a lot differently than another tour just because you're not on a campy kind of ghost tour. You're ghost hunting. You need a little bit different details of what actually went on down here. So here's how this goes. Doctor moves down here from Rhode Island. His name is Joseph Brown Ladd. He moves down here because he's supposed to get married to his fiancée, Amanda. Amanda just inherited a bunch of money from her dead parents. She has an attorney helping her out with all of this cash. The attorney thinks that the doctor is just after Amanda's money, so he tells Amanda to get rid of the doctor. Dr. Ladd moves to Charleston to prove that he's not after Amanda's money, and the coachman that brought him into town set him up to be robbed and killed. So it wasn't a very good start to his stay in Charleston, but somebody was walking by and saw what was going on. His name was Ralph Isaacs. I stopped on Ralph because Ralph has the same initials as where the doctor came from. Rhode Island, Ralph Isaacs. RI shows up here a lot before we got the device that Amy's using. So again, just depends on which character it belongs to. Secondary clue. You guys get the gist. You've been doing this with me for the past hour and a half or so. But anyway, Ralph tells the doctor, you don't want to stay here. I know this guy. He's going to try to take all your money and kill you. But I got some friends at 59 Church Street. You can stay there and rent a room and you'll be good to go. The doctor takes him up on the offer and they become friends. The longer the doctor stays here, the more money he's making. He's proving the point that he doesn't need Amanda's money. So Amanda's going to be moving down soon. Dr. Ladd becomes known as the Whistling Doctor. Every haunted city you're going to visit in the future will have a cliched whistling ghost. It's a guarantee. Everyone has one. So with that, we actually have proof of this one. I'm going to get to that. Now, with that said, him and Ralph go see plays together, but they can't sit next to each other because the doctor makes more money than Ralph now because of his medical practice. So they talk about these plays on the way home. One night they go see Richard III, and they're arguing over the new actress that was in town. The doctor thought she was fantastic, Ralph not so much. It gets even more heated when Ralph starts insulting the doctor's fiance back home in Rhode Island. They go their separate ways. Ralph is from here. He puts an ad in the newspaper telling the whole city of Charleston what he thinks of the doctor. Dr. Ladd sees the ad in the paper. Obviously it was a disgraceful type thing, and he rebuttals with, let's go to Dueler's Alley, somebody's going to die. Let's just settle this. So they come down and take their 10 paces, they turn. The doctor pointed his gun in the air, and he shot. He did not want to kill his friend. He just wanted to have the courage and bravery to show up to the fight, which is often what happened at a duel, by the way. Ralph has his one shot. He puts it in the kneecap on the doctor. The doctor doesn't die. He drops to the ground where his friends pick him up and carry him home to 59 Church Street, where he dies 10 days later after refusing medical treatment. You have to remember he's a doctor. He probably tried to bleed out this bullet himself. So, the campfire ghost story part of this is that as you walk through the alley, you can actually hear the whistles from the doctor. I used to take my tours all the way through there, and it was all about using the voice recorder because it was even before we started using the earbuds for the spirit boxes. So, we do have some whistles that we can't debunk, but if you're going to try this on your own with voice recorders on your phone, keep in mind anybody that's a local knows the story. Anybody walking up and down Cumberland or Queen Street on the other side is going to throw a whistle down the alley. We all do it. So I do it every single night when we're done, because we're going to end there, and my garage is right there. So I have to throw a whistle every time I walk by, especially since I've been kicked out of there. So let's get into why I've been booted out and why I can't take you down there. This alley didn't always come all the way through. So that means the bricks on the other side are older than the bricks that we're looking at on this side. I used to take my teams all the way down there because those bricks are sun-dried bricks from slave children. We have a full handprint and fingerprint swipes in those bricks at the end. Now, I'm sure you guys all picked up that I'm all about the history, right? So it wasn't a matter of like, hey, let's go check out this brick. It was a matter of like, everybody needs to see it because it just shows how far we've come, you know, away from slavery. Now, everybody wants to try to get a reading from that damn brick, and you're not going to get one because that kid is not staring at that brick in the afterlife. November 26th of 2020, my entire team of 10 huddled around that brick waiting for something to happen with their devices. It's outside a gentleman's dining room window of his beautiful mansion. He's not very happy with me. Come out screaming. My daughter was on the tour that night, thought it was great because Dad's getting yelled at, and we moved on. I got a phone call 2 days later on November 28th because the 27th was Thanksgiving. I didn't have a tour. So the 28th, I got a phone call asking me to go down halfway like everybody else or to reroute my tour. So I decided it's not fair for U10 to be investigating around 20 to 60. It's a small space. So I decided to reroute and tell this crazy pirate story that I didn't even believe in. So before we left the space on November 28th, I told my team I didn't believe the story, but I would tell them what I know and let's see what happens with their devices. Before we left, somebody hears the name Anne on a spirit box. I did not tell them we were going to be investigating the female pirate Anne Bonny. So I was like, all right, maybe there is something going on. We get up there, I told a little bit I did know about pirates, and somebody else hears the number 300. So I have no idea what that means either until I do the research the next day. We are there on November 28th of 2020. Anne Bonny's trial for piracy was November 28th of 1720. We were there on the exact 300-year anniversary of her pirate trial. So I keep taking you guys back up there in hopes that we're going to be able to capture more, but I will tell you that it is a hit or miss location. We're either going to get a lot or we're going to get nothing. It's just one of those crazy spaces where you just never know. Worst case scenario is you learn a shit ton about pirates, because I've read more books about pirates since that night than I ever wanted to. I'm a vampire guy, not a pirate guy, but I've read quite a bit about pirates to be able to put some factual lore to what we're about to go through. So we are going to head up to the Powder Magazine at this point. Before we leave, do we have anything on our list? Because you're pretty much the only one watching.
Freak, array, coat, actress, his, guy, arrest.
Actress. So they were arguing over an actress in the play. So weak term, but we're going to take it. Again, we're going to see if something else pops up with that. Maybe it'll give us the name of the play. That was Richard III. So we'll see if anything like that will actually pop up. Has anybody else been listening to those spirit boxes with the earbuds? Yeah, I know. With this space, it's weird because we're in close proximity. Shelby, you got anything on yours?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay, good deal. All right, any letters that we need to...
COKPKK.
COKPKK. You had Coke, didn't you? What did you have?
Coke.
Coke. I thought you said Coke. Interesting. All right.
COKPKK.
Wow, that's a lot. A lot of P's, a lot of K's. All right, let's go learn about pirates. Let's go see what we can do up here. They go a lot here, so that's why I like to just stay out of their way. What do we got on your spirit boxes? Anything going
I got
on?
Holy Grail when we walked over here.
So we start getting religious terms like the minute we leave Lodge Alley, so I'm not surprised by that one.
I started hearing religious songs.
Songs? So like church songs or like just Christian songs?
Like Christian songs.
Okay.
I heard, I can only imagine.
Anybody else hear anything? Letters
Oh,
going
Harry
on?
Styles as it was.
Oh,
Everybody hears Harry Styles.
I got N.
N. Keep that one going. Let me know what else you get with the letter N. That is actually one of the initials of what I caught here just the other night. So, explain more if it pops up. How about that? Is that fair? See how that goes. Welcome to the Powder Magazine. So we're going to be discussing this little building first before we get into our crazy pirate story, and it explains why we're actually here. This building, those are not crosses, by the way, those are earthquake bolts. If you're unfamiliar with those, they're basically turnbuckles. So if we have another earthquake, like what we did in 1886 that I mentioned earlier, you can turn the turnbuckles and it's supposed to straighten the building back up again. It's a great idea, it just doesn't work. So again, the reason I bring it up is because these are the first set of earthquake bolts that we actually put in Charleston, because this is the oldest government building in South Carolina. So it was finished in 1713. We are here because this building is a familiar to Anne Bonny at the same time frame of when she was coming to Charleston and started her pirate career. So that's exactly why we're here. Now, let's kind of get going with that. So this building took 10 years to build. Does that sound like our government? 10 years, small building? Not at all. So, in the middle of its construction is where the story begins, 1708. So follow me, there's a couple of twists. 1708, a young lady moves here by the name of Anne Cormack. She moves here with her father and his mistress. The mistress is her mother. Is everybody with me so far? The three of them are running away from his wife. So how mad was she that they had to leave Ireland to come here in 1708 by boat, just saying. But they land in Georgetown, just north of here. That's between us and Myrtle Beach, for those of you that are not from here. Dad buys a plantation in the Georgetown area, but Mom died pretty quickly, which means he has to send young Anne down here to Charlestown to be able to sell anything from the plantation to keep things afloat. Now, back home in Ireland, Anne was kind of a badass. They say she actually killed one of her servants when she was only 10 or 12 years old with a knife to the belly. So again, yeah, I'm giving you that mentality of this young lady through the rest of the story. We're going to fast forward. The building's done in 1713, but pirates were coming through town in 1715. Anne's going to fall in love because she's trying to find her freedom, just like a man. First guy she falls in love with, yes, I said first because we're going to go through a handful of them. They all mean something. James Bonny. You already see where this one's going, right? Dad doesn't approve. Filthy pirate. They run away to Jamaica. They get married. Anne Cormack is now Anne Bonny. However, James Bonny is not the Captain Jack Sparrow she was hoping for. This guy is a privateer, meaning he's a spy for the British, aka a coward. So, a few years later, she falls in love again. The guy's name is John Rackham, aka Calico Jack. This is the real Captain Jack Sparrow that they based the character off of, just so everybody kind of has that mentality. Jack has his own ship and wants to be part of it. You can't put a girl on a pirate ship. Does anybody know why? Nobody knows why? You can't put a girl on a pirate ship? You're bad luck. You can't, with all those men on there? Yeah, that's why there's no females on there. So he makes a deal with her. If you dress like a guy, you can be part of the crew, but you're going to be a female in my quarters. She's okay with this because Dad used to cross-dress her as a boy back home in Ireland to keep her away from his wife. So she's like, whatever, it's a man's world, I'm a pirate now, let's go. Let's put two and two together. Being a female in his quarters, she's eventually going to get pregnant. You can't have a pregnant pirate dude on the crew. Somebody's going to figure out that she's a female, and they're going to vote Jack off the ship. So with that said, because she's pregnant, he drops her off in Cuba. Go have the baby over here. These are friends of mine. They'll help you. Come back later. We'll figure it out then. She goes and has the baby, but returns with no baby. We have no idea what happened to the child. She's also dressed like a female. She doesn't care anymore about hiding her gender. This makes Jack pretty angry. He just captured another pirate crew that's down below deck, and she's going to go flirting with that pirate crew because that's what Anne does. She wants to make him even more mad. So she goes down below deck, and the guy she's flirting with, yes, we're on guy number 3, turns out to be a female dressed like a guy to be part of the pirate crew that Calico Jack just captured. So now we have 2 females dressed like males on the same ship. Her name is Mary Reed. She went by Mark Reed to become a pirate. Her and Mary become friends, possibly lovers. We're never going to know for sure. And the British find out where they are. They send a fleet of ships to come take down one measly pirate ship, and Anne and Mary are the only pirates not drunk enough to come up and fight with their 1-bullet flintlocks, probably because they don't know how to use the cannon jet. So as 2 ladies are trying to take on this fleet of ships, they're going to get arrested because they're not going to be able to do it. And as they're being arrested, she looks at her captain, her beau, Calico Jack, and says, "You should have fought like a man instead of being hanged like a dog." Yeah, the word dog shows up here quite often. The judge, his name is Nicholas, just like me, Nicholas Laws. So if we get a name Nick on there, that's why I'm actually waiting for another N, because there's 3 different Nicks that could be relevant to. We'll talk about it if the other initial pops up. But he wants to see the 2 men that fought back so valiantly on their own. He doesn't know that they're female, basically, and he's already tried and hung Calico Jack and the drunk pirates that wouldn't come up and fight. So the 2 ladies go in front. They reveal their gender, hoping to actually save themselves. He doesn't care that they're female. He's still going to hang them because they're pirates. "We plead our bellies," was the last thing they said, meaning they're both claiming to be pregnant. You cannot hang a pregnant woman in 1720. It's illegal. So he sends them both back to jail and delays the hanging. Dad is still here in the Charleston area. He bails out Anne. He brings her back home. She remarries. That's husband number 2, but guy number 4, because we're going to count Mary Reed, and has 4 kids, dies at the age of 84. Yes, very abrupt ending. As far as Mary Reed goes, she died a year later in that Jamaican jail from whatever pirates die from in a Jamaican jail. Most articles will tell you that was fever, but it's probably scurvious and bumpy and gross. Now, as far as your spirit boxes, because there is a lot of you here, I only left out 2 questions on purpose, just because you guys should know what you're doing by now as far as questioning. And again, we're dealing with as much factual data as I can about pirate lore, which means it can't all be factual. The name of Anne Bonny's parents I left out. That's the father and the mistress. And I also left out the name of Calico Jack's ship. So, you can ask those 2 questions. You can also ask anything else you want to. So if you want to have a blast with it and try to get us some answers to plug some holes in the story, let's see what pops up. As far as your device, John, I love to ask Anne Bonny what her hair color is to see if she'll show me with your color scheme that you have going across the top there. So you're definitely going to use that here. As far as the 2 EMF meters, the closer you get to these corners, you're going to get readings based on electrical poles. Don't get excited. Most of those readings are going to be back here if you're going to get anything. You normally don't get numbers. This is all about photographs. Those of you with the 3 different cameras, again with you, you can go to the front if you want. The only thing I ask is that you don't interrupt the other tours. If somebody's there telling some piece of history here, wait till they move, go in, get a few minutes of footage, and we'll see what we can capture on those cameras while you're up there. Otherwise, we're going to hang out back here. The rest of you, if you want to see the front of the Powder Magazine, you can follow those camera people if you'd like, but they're completely up to you. Again, we're going to know within the first 5 minutes if there's something actually going on here or not. But I'm going to work with Amy first because I want to test that guy out over here and take a look at the letter she's been getting. So let's spread out in this space and let's have some fun on our last stop. Let's see what we can get going on. Amy, let me see that thing.
Cold about me? Nothing. I'm hot.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you don't call me.
you got anything coming out? Have a hard time with it, huh?
Isn't Edward Teach Blackbeard, what he went back to the town of Bath? Isn't that where he was buried?
I think so.
Because Bath showed up, he's like, what's that got to do with Blackbeard?
Stay steady like that.
I got Afraid of You. Afraid of You. I also got Thanksgiving, because, you know, that story was about Thanksgiving over there, and then when we got over here, Thanksgiving. That's what he was saying. He was like saying about me. We heard about me over there.
He told you what I.
That's great. You got anything else?
I heard something, it sounded like John. And then it sounded like it flat out said things are okay.
That was supposed to be weird. Thank you, actually. Well, Amy, you got any other letters?
NEJS.
Alright, so we did get the word Bath that was showing up on the word list, and Holly's going to confirm, like to me, like, I think of Blackbeard and I automatically think Ocracoke, North Carolina. And I guess he's buried, alleged, lived in Bath, North Carolina. So again, we did have that, and some of the letters that showed up on Amy's Envoy, the Ouija board, were BLK and another B. So again, I wouldn't expect a full Blackbeard to come out of that because the man's name was Edward Teach. So that would be much easier to spell one or two of those, or both of those, versus a whole Blackbeard coming across. So I'll kind of see what's going on with the rest of your devices when I'm going through your data. The name George was heard. I don't have any relevance to that. But we did have, obviously, Miss Grace showed up, so that kind of goes with the Holy Grail. We're next to, you know, another religious term of grace. And then the name John was heard, which is Calico Jack's real name, John Rackham. So let me give you the quick answers to the two measly questions that I gave you. So normally with this space, you can usually tell like right away. Like a lot of things will come up very specific. So John will give us a red on his device just because her hair color was red. We'll hear Anne, we'll hear the parents' names like really, really fast. So the fact that you guys weren't giving me those was a matter of like, okay, it's probably a dead night for us, no pun intended, or was it intended? So Anne Bonny, one of the few pictures you can find of her with a shirt on, by the way. The names of her parents were William Cormack and Mary Brennan. So again, none of you were expecting a second Mary, because remember the first Mary came off the ship. That was the friend/lover. So Mary Reed was the friend, Mary Brennan was the mother. So again, William Cormack, William and Mary will often show up here. I also like to show you what Calico Jack looked like, because again, this is the real person that they based your Disney character off of. But I also like to tell you why they named him that. Calico Jack, because the jackets that he wore came from the British captains that he killed. So again, Calico Jack, fancy jacket. So again, fancy friends, so to speak. The name of his ship was the Kingston. So I do not expect Kingston to come through some of your spirit boxes that use strictly radio stations. However, we're using other devices where the word Kingston can pop up. So John's device, we've had some pretty close things to pop up with that on a disembodied voice. But I will also tell you the second night I was using yours, because that's only about 6 months old on the tour, somebody's handing it back to me, and we all heard the term pirate, because they were a very quiet group, just like you guys. And luckily for us, we had it standing next to the thermal imaging camera, and the audio came straight through there. So it was like, it wasn't like the Pittsburgh Pirates are winning. It was more like pirate, and that was the end of it. So again, we never know what we're going to actually find in this space, but I'm going to call this actually pretty light. When I go through your data, obviously I kind of know the timestamps of the way things go, even though I don't time things. That's why I do it first thing in the morning, so everything's fresh on the brain, and why I take lots and lots of notes. But again, things about Blackbeard I'll be diving into for sure, just based on the amount of letters that we got out of this, and the term Bath that showed up on the word list. How many words did we actually get tonight out of your word list? It'll tell you at the bottom of the other page.
79.
79. So that's about an average amount. Again, I don't time this. I just kind of wait to see what's going to pop up out of your devices. So let me stop your audio. That'll kind of give me a gist of how much data you're